Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two informative videos are done for the day, which included my bench press workout for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. Now, I have never done these as a voiceover. I always do these at my desk with my green screen going, with my reloading bench while I hand load ammo. And today, it's very appropriate to use training footage because of the topic. Because I had someone say to me, "Hey Jason, you call people out on promoting the partial bench press, but two people who you say are good channels have done it. Why don't you call them out?" And I had to go, well, I don't know what you're talking about because I've never seen that. If people want me to call someone out for something, they need to actually link it to me. Otherwise, I don't have time to go dig for it. And it turned out that was a good thing I said that because this is stuff these guys made years ago. But yeah, Scott Herman and Jeff Cavalier with Athlean-X, who are both good channels. Like, I'll be honest with you guys, as far as YouTube fitness channels go, these guys are easily in the top 5. So that doesn't mean that they're perfect. You know what? No one on YouTube is perfect. I'm not perfect. You know what? I've made mistakes. I have put out bad information unintentionally and corrected myself later, sometimes a year later, sometimes 2 years later. But you know what? We all make mistakes. So I'm not going to hold that against these guys and say, oh, they're terrible people or something, because they're not. They're actually both pretty good channels overall, meaning the majority of what they say is good, the majority. Now, that being said, they pointed out some things, and I went ahead and watched both of their videos all the way through. And Athlean-X's was obviously more detailed because he's a physical therapist by trade and a sports trainer by trade. Whereas in Scott Herman is a little more of a layman. I know he's a personal trainer and everything, but probably not anywhere near that extensive of a background. The problem they had is that they were saying, look, you don't want to touch your chest on the bench press. Now, obviously, you guys are going to see me say, okay, this is a problem. And Scott Herman pointed out, look, power lifters will do a big arch and they're stopping at 90 degrees. Right? They're stopping at 90 degrees. Well, you guys notice I'm not really arching. I arch a little bit, but it's not very much. I'm almost flat back on this. Why? Because I'm rebuilding my strength. I quit benching for a long time and I'm rebuilding my strength up. I don't want to arch. I don't want a wide grip. I'm on a pause, close grip. It's how you build a strong chest. Now, the difference is I do have a big chest and a big back. That does make a difference. But you know what? If the only concern is that their chest is bigger, why don't you guys arch a little bit? Problem solved. So Scott Herman's argument doesn't hold water. The same thing we come to Jeff's argument that, look, we don't need to do that because of the internal rotation of the shoulders. Well, the reason you're seeing internal rotation of the shoulders the way he described it, and he describes his own injury, is because he shows even the simulation he gave us benching high up on his chest. All right, if you bench above your nipple line, you have no business teaching anyone how to bench press. Anyone who benches above their nipple line, of course, they're going to risk hurting their shoulders. You bench below the nipple line and you tuck your elbows at the bottom. Now, all of that's well and good, and these guys are saying, oh, you need to stop up here, you need to stop up here if you do this. Now, obviously, Jeff said, well, you could reverse bench instead, and reverse bench, while a good exercise, has its own set of risks. I mean, if we're going to talk overall risk, as far as risk of injury, I'm sorry, there's no way to make the underhand grip bench press as low risk as the normal bench press. There isn't. And I'm not saying it's not a fantastic exercise, and I'm not saying every exercise doesn't carry some inherent risk. But as far as someone needing to learn a proper technique, there's less margin for error on that exercise. I'm not saying you can't perform it safely, extremely heavily. Plenty of people can have, and I even have in the past. But, if we talk about that from the perspective of, is this a safe exercise? Come on. It has a lot of risk on its own right. Now, what's interesting is that today I got pinned under a bench press. I got way into my work sets, and I failed halfway up, and the bar came down, and you guys see me bail out of it. In fact, I made an entire video right before this one discussing how to safely get out of a bench press, and I went ahead and watched these videos after I made that. I had rendered that video, uploaded that video, made it live, everything, before I went and watched these two guys' videos. And I just realized the footage I did today and that video I covered earlier today addresses the biggest problem with this idea. Anyone who is telling you to do a partial bench press in the air, I mean, you can make all the arguments you want in the world that if someone's going to bench high up on their chest, which is already a problem, they shouldn't come all the way down. You know what? They're absolutely right. If you, for whatever reason, decide that you're going to bench above the nipple line because you say, look, I want to be a complete moron who doesn't know how to train and I really don't give a shit, in which case you're going to bench above your nipple line. All right, here's the problem. What happens if something goes wrong? And that's the question I would have for guys who are demonstrating this, because both of them demonstrated that, particularly Jeff. He demonstrated stopping several inches above the chest, stopping at 90 degrees for a bench way up high on the chest. In what world is that workable? And I'm really surprised that a guy with his experience level would recommend that. You train any of your guys that way? And that's the thing. I don't think he trains any of his guys to do that. I think he said that purely from a physiology perspective. No reasonable person would ever recommend that. A lot of guys would be like, I see lots of guys do that at the gym. Yeah, well, how many guys do you know who are my age? Because I'm 40. I'm about to turn 41. I'm 40 years old. How many guys you know my age who are like, I used to bench press 250 pounds. I used to bench press 300 pounds until I tore my rotator cuffs. And now it's a guy who doesn't look like he lifts at all. You guys know what I'm talking about? How many of those guys you think benched high up on their chest or even did partial bench presses? A whole lot of them. Because you know what? If you bench press that way and you stop at 90 degrees, just normal in the air with nothing but air between you and the bar, you will eventually be that guy. You're not going to be bench pressing 275 for 8 or 9 work sets or 10 work sets or whatever like you guys see me doing, pause bench. You're not going to be doing that shit at 40. You're going to be snapped up and not lifting at 40 is what's going to happen if you press that way. And do you know why? What happens if you fail a rep? What happens if you fail a rep or your spotter doesn't catch the bar correctly? What's going to happen then? What's going to happen? That bar is going to come down and hit you in the chest. Now, you've spent all this time, let's say you've been training that way 6 months, a year and a half before this happens. You've added weight to the bar and you've gotten stronger and stronger. You might have 225. You might have 250 on the bar, but you've done nothing but 2/3 reps with it. What happens to your chest mobility and your strength at the bottom? It's non-existent because strength doesn't transfer beyond about 15 degrees with any joint angle. It's called joint angle specificity. What happens? Your chest is now tighter because you've never developed mobility. You've never developed strength through the full range of motion. So what happens when that bar does come down and finally hit you in the chest? It goes that extra 4 inches or 5 inches that you don't press it. And you have 225 or 275 or 315 on the bar. What happens? You snap your shit up for the rest of your life. That's what happens. That's the absolute most stupid advice from 2 intelligent guys I have ever seen in my life. And I like these guys. I like these guys, but that shit is stupid and it has no business being talked about by anyone who is a professional. If you ever do a partial rep on a bench press, you have to have an object between you and the bar. All right, you cannot use the air to do it. If you do it long enough, you will eventually injure yourself so badly that you will require a surgery. You might not do it in the first year. You might not do it in the second year, but you will eventually snap your shit off. It is unavoidable. It will eventually happen. All right, it's stupidity. If you decide for whatever reason that you can't do the full range of motion because, for example, you decide to bench way up high on your chest, or whatever reason, that's why board presses exist. All right, powerlifters figured this out generations ago. The whole strength training world figured this out generations ago. You use a board press or you use a carpet press. You get a big roll of carpet so you can keep the same thickness of it that's 4 inches compressed, and you lay it on your chest and you bench press to that if you can't do a board. All right, companies make boards that you can strap to your chest now so that you don't have to have someone hold the board paddles to do it. You have to have a physical object between you and the bar because eventually you are going to miss a lift. Eventually you are going to hit muscle failure. When you hit failure, that bar is coming down. And not only are you then in an anatomically bad position, it's a bad bar path, you've never trained the strength and mobility. Your chest and those muscles aren't as flexible or as mobile as they should be as someone who trains correctly. You got a problem. Now, you guys see me touching my chest. over and over and over, set after set. I'm 40 years old. I have bench pressed well over 400 pounds before when younger. I can still bench press relatively heavy. I don't have these problems. And most people who understand how to train their shoulders correctly and understand how to bench press correctly do not have problems doing full range of motion. It's because people do stupid stuff like try to bench high on their chest, or they don't understand technique or how to set up or how to perform the exercise that causes problems full range of motion. I think every single bench press rep you do for your entire life, including your warm-ups with the empty bar, should be a full touch with a pause on the chest. I don't even believe in touch and go benching. And a lot of that has to do with building true strength and actual injury prevention. That's just my take on it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.